I'm Anne Archer, and Rebecca and I, we work together a lot actually, with the resilience dynamic, both with clients, so clients such as Google, and others. And we're also faculty for the resilience accreditation program for coaches. And as Rebecca said, we talk to each other quite a lot about our capacity, our adaptability, our ability to cope with life, and the tsunami of things that come at us. And we thought, wouldn't it be nice just to spend some time together talking about what we can do to support ourselves? And we then thought, well, actually, part of the joy for us is being with others as well, and sharing and learning from and with each other. And so we thought, why don't we open this out to others? So that's how this was kind of born. So it'd be really lovely to hear your feedback later, because we were thinking, well, maybe we do it every 6 months, just this chance for us to take a breath, step back, make it about us for a change, because I think we spend so much time thinking about lots of other people. So it's lovely also to see, I mentioned there about learning from and with each other. It's lovely to see that there are members of our community of practice. And Katie's going to post in the resources, for those of you that don't know anything about that at all, she's going to post a link so that you can find out about it if that's something you're curious about. But it's very much a sense of, we know that in order to be able to navigate life, and let's face it, we've got a lot of things battering us, it's really great to feel connected, to people who can support us, can challenge us, can offer us ideas and stimulus. And at the same time, to really think about right here and now, do I feel safe and okay? So we're going to think about that a little bit today. I think where it would be useful to go is just to give a little bit of a context. Some of you this will be a refresh for you, and some of you, it might be some new ideas and some new thoughts. But I mentioned then about the world we're living in right now is quite a challenging place to be. And I think we can all identify that either for ourselves or for our clients. And we're getting hits to ourselves from lots of different dimensions, and it's consistent. And in our research, in the resilience research that Jenny Campbell has been doing for decades, one of the things that we found, and it really seems to be ringing true right here, right now, is about our capacity. And what we found is that people that have a real strategic capacity to adjust and adapt to the world around them without a loss of well-being actually only fill their lives up with 65% of stuff. So if you think about that, what that's saying is they only fill their capacity bucket to 65% full. So irrespective of whether this is an A&E doctor, a CEO, a mother, a teacher, a nurse, somebody working in some sort of corporate environment, those with the highest level of ability to have that strategic capacity to handle life and the stuff that goes with it do not fill their capacity bucket full. And I'd like to sort of start with that as a bit of a thought for you in terms of just how full is your capacity bucket right now? Because what we know is if there's no capacity, it's very difficult to pause and refresh and think about those things that you need to do to keep yourselves well. So just think about that capacity. Now, of course, when we're under significant pressure, when there is a lot going on, we can fill that up to 100%, for sure. But what we found from the research consistently over and over again, we have to find space to regroup, to nourish ourselves, and to get that space back in our lives. So it's one of the core components. So when we're working with resilience, and when we're really working with, whether it's an organization, so organizational capacity is really key, or whether it's you as an individual, that idea of really thinking about, yeah, how full is my life? And if you're tipping to it becoming too full, that's when we need to dial down and really think about it. And so a couple of other things that we thought would be quite nice to really think about today. So we've got this idea of those people that have that strategic capacity. They know how to manage themselves so they can meet the demands that are being placed on them. And they have that space, that gap. So think about, have you got that gap in your life? But in addition to that, what we found over and over again, there are certain enablers and certain barriers. So the barriers that just get in our own way. And Rebecca's going to talk about those barriers shortly. But there are a number of enablers that we find really support us to have that strategic capacity. And the two that we're going to focus on, I've mentioned one already, which is actually learning. And one of the real joys about being in this sort of community and sharing and learning from and with each other, it's really nourishing, and it supports you and it helps you to grow. So learning is one of them, and that's sort of key, and it flows through everything. But the two we're going to focus on today as the two enablers for today, one is about being present. And we found that if we can be in the here and now, right here, right now, not projecting forward to the shoulds and the ought tos and the have tos, and not dwelling on the past, but we're okay here and now, we're safe here and now, we're present here and now, it builds our capacity to handle, to adapt and adjust with whatever's going on without losing our well-being. Yeah, it helps us to stay focused and to access our resources. So in a few minutes, I'm going to guide you through a reflection where you can think about your own presence, your own being right here, right now, what that feels like. And the other enabler that we know ties in really tightly to this ability to adapting and adjusting is our energy levels. And when we think about energy, what we're seeing now quite consistently are 4 types of energy. So you've got your physical energy, and you'll have different ways that you'll build your physical energy, but you also have your mental or your cognitive energy. Then there's the emotional energy, and that can be quite draining sometimes. I know from my own experience recently, I found that quite challenging because of the personal circumstances. And I've actually found by boosting my physical energy, it's helped with my emotional energy. So these are very much interchangeable. And then we have that spiritual energy, that sense of self, that sense of purpose, of meaning, of perhaps something that's bigger than ourselves, something that helps locate us in our world and the world around us. So that kind of spiritual energy, are we moved towards something, or have we become very insular? You know, is there something bigger than that? So these two enablers, and when we do the resilience training, the coach training, we actually go through quite a few. There's quite a few more that we found coming through in the research, but these two really seem to support you, whatever your level of capacity is right now, whether you're really struggling, whether you're thriving. These two, being present and energy, really hold us. So what I'm going to do now is invite you to think about your presence right now and take you through an exercise. It'll be entirely at your own pace. So there's no need to be, you know, mindful of anybody else. This is very much about you thinking about you and at your own pace. But before I do that, Rebecca, is there anything I've missed? Anything else you want to add?
No, beautifully summarised, Anne.
Okay, thank you. I should say, those of you, I'm sure many of you do these kind of exercises where you do these reflection exercises. And I have two 4-year-old twins running around all over the place, and they both got coughs. And I was thinking yesterday, as they were coughing here, I was thinking, oh, I hope this doesn't happen at the moment of calm. But anyway. So what I'm going to invite you to do now, and you can sit or stand, it's entirely up to you. But this is just an opportunity for you to tune in to you, and don't worry about anybody else. But it's just an opportunity to tune into you and being present with yourself. We are going to think about being present with clients, but for now, this is just about you being present with yourself, and we will tune into that energy too. So those of you that are on the recording, obviously you can just listen because we're not disappearing off. This will be in this group here now. So what I want you to do is just, or invite you to do, is to just notice your breathing. Now, I'm not asking you to change it in any way. I'm just inviting you to notice breathing in and breathing out. And I should say that if at any time you feel uncomfortable about doing this exercise, just stop. But it's very much at your own pace. So I'm going to stop talking just for a moment and just focus on your breathing. What are you feeling as you breathe in? Where do you feel the breath coming in? And as I say, I'm not inviting you to change. I'm not asking you to take any deep breaths or do anything different. But where do you feel the breath in? Is it in your belly, in your rib cage, perhaps in your chest? Just notice, don't worry about the exhaling at the moment, just focus, you will exhale, but I'm just asking you to notice the inhale. And where do you feel it? And obviously you inhale and you exhale. So now notice the exhale. What do you notice about your exhale? Do you exhale through the mouth? Through the nose? Do you feel you're exhaling fully? Does the inhale and the exhale feel about the same time? Or is the exhale a bit longer? You're just noticing your breathing. And it's quite a cool thing to do at any time during the day when you just want to just reconnect, very simply without any edginess. Now, what I'd like to do now is tune in a little bit differently and link it to our ability to self-regulate and link it to our ability to resource ourselves. And this time, when you inhale, I'd like you to think about inhaling with some energy and some activation, so feeling like you're revving up, a bit of an in-breath. Do it in your own way, in your own pattern, but feel you're kind of revving up. So we're getting the sympathetic nervous system dialed in, we're tuning it in, we're turning it on, we're going, we're ready, we're active. So not going into fight or flight mode, but we're going into activation mode. Yeah, so just feel that in-breath as you breathe in. And then as you exhale, this is the parasympathetic nervous system, I'd like you to just calm. So you've got the activation of the inhale and the calm of the exhale. So just try the in, get ready, and then calm. Feel the exhale working its way through your system. Feel the out breath. And what you're doing is you're engaging the autonomic nervous system, which is pretty cool because that's the part of the system that helps us to self-regulate and helps us, if we are self-regulated, we can be present. And the other dimension about this is the social nervous system, which is about being in connection with other people. So when we feel connected, and I can't see you all other than Rebecca's lovely face, I know you're there. I sense it, I feel it. So I feel that connection too. So I feel safe. And to be present, fully present, we need to have that resourcefulness, and we also need to feel safe. So I'm just going to leave you for a few minutes to just take your time to do your breathing, and you can either do the revving up and the calm type breathing, or just revert to whatever feels comfortable for you. But just take a few moments to notice, what are your thoughts at the minute? What are you feeling? What are your sensations? How connected do you feel into yourself? And I'll just give you a few moments to do that on your own, and then we'll come back and I'll hand over to Rebecca. Okay. So it's always a bit weird when we can't see people, but this is how we've chosen to do this today. And so I'm going to invite you all to just take a few moments, get yourself back to moving on, and we'll now start moving into a slightly different space. And I'll hand over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Anne. So my mind's still in there, so I've got to.
Well, come back, take your time. This is not a rush.
So we're going to give you
people probably feel the same.
I know. So we're going to give you the opportunity to connect with each other. And for those that are with us live this morning, we're going to move you into breakout rooms. And for those that are watching the recording, you can do this exercise by yourselves, or maybe talk to another coaching colleague and talk it through with them. But you can do this exercise either way. And when Anne and I were talking about this session, we were talking about our ability to be present for our clients. And what we're inviting you to do together is to really think about and discuss those clients where you find a real ease with being present, where it comes very naturally, where it comes very easily, and kind of be curious about what's creating those conditions of ease to be present. And then think about those clients where maybe it's a little bit more uncomfortable, that it's more difficult to find that ease of presence with them, where maybe you have to kind of fight a bit harder to stay present. And that might be just about the quality of the relationship that you form with that client. It might be about the environment that you're working in. It could be about your own personal state of mind, your own energy that Anne was just talking about. So there's lots of factors that create that, but maybe just think about what's creating those conditions for ease or lack of ease with your clients over the last 6 to 12 months. And then, because we want to make this session just getting you to think about, okay, what can we do about this? To really think about what would make the biggest difference to your ability to stay more present with more ease with your clients. So what would make the biggest difference to you to stay more present with more ease with your clients as you move into 2024? So we're going to give you 12 minutes to do this together in pairs. So just have a conversation, share your thoughts with each other, and remember that final question, because that's the action point, the stuff that we're going to take away. We're going to talk about accountability a bit later to move it from sort of reflections to action. So Katie's going to send us off into breakout rooms in pairs, and we'll bring you back after 12 minutes so you can rejoin us. Enjoy your conversation together. So we hope that was a useful reflection, just to think about how we sustain our own ability to be present for our clients. So Anne got to talk about the really lovely enablers to our resilience and our ability to look after ourselves. I get to talk about the things that get in the way of us being able to do that. So I'm going to be talking about the barriers, and these are the barriers that have been identified by the resilience dynamic again, and all the research that's been done, and they consistently show up in the work that we do. There are more barriers, but these are the three that we're going to choose to talk about today. And what I'm going to invite you to do is, when I'm talking about these barriers, and I'll give you a couple of minutes reflection time at the end, just quiet reflection to think about this, but I'd like you to do is just notice the one that you have a kind of instant connection with, that you think, oh yeah, that's me, or I noticed that. So whether that's a kind of physical response or an emotional response to one of the things I'm talking about, one of the barriers, then just notice that, maybe make a note of it as I'm talking, and then you'll get some time to reflect on that and how that might be getting in the way of you being able to be present and bring your energy that Anne was just talking about to your clients. So the first of these barriers is boundaries, and our ability to hold those boundaries for ourselves. And when we talk about boundaries, through the research and through the accreditation program, is that there are sort of three elements to boundaries. One is, do you know what your boundaries are? So have you really actively thought about, okay, what are the boundaries that I really need to have in place to look after myself in 2024? What are the boundaries maybe that I had in 2023 that I need to bring forward, or what are the things that were missing? So really actively thinking about, what are my boundaries? And the second part of that is, how am I able to live those boundaries? So you may have had a really clear view of actually what those boundaries were in 2023, but for whatever reason, struggled to live those boundaries. So really thinking about, okay, what's getting in the way of me being able to really live those boundaries? And the third one that's often really forgotten about, that I do a lot of work with clients, and in particular teams as well sometimes, is how do you communicate those boundaries? Because it's all very well knowing your boundaries and really trying to live them, but actually if you haven't communicated them to your partner, to your family, to your friends, to your colleagues, and to your clients, then actually the struggle to maintain those boundaries is a lot harder. So when you're thinking about boundaries, it's really asking yourself, do I know what my boundaries even are? Do I know how I can live those boundaries, how I can maintain them and stop them from being leaky, or stop them from being a bit blurred or being a bit weak? And then also, how do I communicate them? Who do I need to communicate them with? How clear am I being in that? How consistent am I being with that? Because that can cause confusion as well. Because when we were talking about this session, we were thinking about, why is it that we sometimes soak up too many of the emotions of our clients? Now we're in the service of people. We are humans, so we are bound to be touched by the stories that we hear. We will be moved by the experiences that people are going through. We will carry some of those concerns. That's entirely natural. We wouldn't be humans if we weren't responding to the human stories that we're hearing. And yet, if we don't really look after our boundaries in this work, what can happen is that our own ability to look after ourselves reduces, and we start to absorb their emotions, their fears, to the extent where we will struggle to sustain our own presence for our clients, to maintain our own energy, and therefore that is compromised. So I just invite you to really think about your boundaries in the coming year. So that's our first barrier. The second barrier is the one I think that at the moment is really speaking to me the most. So when I was thinking about this session, I was almost doing the work on myself as I was doing it. And this second one is really about our capacity expectations being too high. So this, in its kind of basis form, really is, we think we can get more done than we actually can. And so for those of you that know me well, this will probably, you're probably having a little wry grin to yourself at the moment, because this is certainly one that I know that I've grappled with, and I think probably a bit of a hangover from corporate life as well, that many of us have worked in, that we are constantly on the go in whatever form that is. So the one thing just to notice about this is, how much are we creating more demand for ourselves than we need to? There are demands in our lives that we cannot do much about, that we have to manage. And as Anne was talking about, if our capacity is compromised, if our capacity is low, then our ability to keep pace with those demands is really tricky. So, and it will impact on our ability, on our well-being, it will impact on our performance, it will impact on our behaviors. I can really tell when my behaviors are starting to be a bit leaky around this, and my stress levels are rising. You talk to my family members, they will tell you exactly how that leaks out. So really thinking about, actually, how much are we carrying too much expectation of ourselves and the demands on us? And how loud is that busy, busy, busy phrase playing out for you on a daily basis? How often do we respond when somebody says, how are you? And we say, we're just really busy. So just consciously thinking about how we are labeling kind of even ourselves at the moment, and then thinking about, what is it that we could say no to? What is it we can create the boundaries around for that? So that's our second one. So our capacity expectations are too high. We think we can get more done than we actually can. And then our final one, we call the DIY barrier. So we don't ask for help. We try and do it all. So as people that many of you are self-employed, I'm sure we all try and do everything ourselves, whether it's our accountancy, whether it's our finance, whether it's our legal work, we try and do everything ourselves, and we struggle to ask for help, or we struggle to delegate, or we struggle to collaborate. And therefore this impacts again on our ability to really look after ourselves, because we are trying to do too much and we are unable to really seek help. So those are our three barriers. We've got boundaries, we've got expectation is too high, and the DIY tendency, so that lack of ability to seek help. So those are the three barriers that we wanted to just talk through today. And what I'm going to invite you to do is just have 2 minutes of quiet reflection for yourselves to think about two questions. The first one is just, which is the one that resonates with you at the moment? Which is the one that really resonates with you at the moment? And the second question is, how does this barrier make it more difficult to look after yourself? How does this barrier make it more difficult for you to look after yourself? So just two questions and 2 minutes of quiet reflection, which I'm going to time on my watch. So those at home just watching this on the recording, you can just stay with us and do this quiet reflection together. So just going to start you off with those two questions. Okay, so just going to bring you back to, oh, there we are, beeper going on. So just bring you back into the room, and we're going to move into the final part of this session together to just think about how we enable ourselves to be maybe a bit more accountable for making some changes, because we've been in this lovely space together where we've thought about these things, but it's very easy to walk away from this and then not really do anything with it. So Anne's going to talk to us a little bit more about actually how do we maintain that accountability to be able to pace ourselves and put in place the things we need to look after ourselves in service of our clients in the coming year.
Thanks, Rebecca. I know I'm guilty of sometimes getting overwhelmed or busy, and I make it all about me, and I forget sometimes to be really accountable to myself, and I don't always make commitments to myself that I keep, and I can get distracted, and it might be a barrier that pops up. You know, it could be anything. And so what we thought would be helpful is, as we're closing out this session, is you have a chance to think about, yeah, what commitment am I going to make to myself? How can I be accountable for my own strategic capacity to adjust and adapt to change without losing our well-being? How can I do that for myself? What commitment do I want to make to myself? And some of the things that you might like to think about, so you'll being a parent, you'll have the opportunity to just reflect together. What commitment can I make to myself now, today, being present, that can really sustain those two enablers that we talked about being present and about our energy in 2024, both with ourselves, but also with our clients. What did you notice about the barriers that you reflect on and think, actually, I'm going to make a commitment to myself about that? It might also be about capacity. That's certainly one of my high agenda items this year. The other thing about commitment, about accountability, is supervision. And when we're acting and working as coaches, having that person there that can help us be vulnerable and help us dig into some of those challenging thoughts and ideas that we might have, or who can also help us to hold us to account. How do we use that if we indeed we do? And that might be either with individuals in individual supervision, it might be peer-to-peer supervision, or it just might be with a colleague. But how can we actually do this? How can we make this a sustainable action? So I'm going to pop you into breakout rooms now to just really pull this together. It'll only be for about 6 or 7 minutes, just a brief time, but just a time to pause, stop, and make some personal commitments to yourself. So I think, Katie, you're going to put people back in. Oh, look, it's lovely. We've got some things. Oh, okay, Diane, you're popping off too. Lovely to see you.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much.
That's all right, Diane. No doubt we'll see you soon. And thanks, Orla. So pop you into breakouts just for this final 5 minutes, 6 minutes, just to tune in, and what commitment. And sometimes when we say a commitment out loud, we're more likely to take it on board. And it's always great to hear what other people have to say too. So Katie, I'll leave it to you to just sort out the breakout. So I do appreciate that this is a real whistle-stop tour, and to sort of find and to re-access and to just a moment of connection with ourselves. And certainly Rebecca and I enjoy this sort of time where we just think about ourselves, really. And we've drawn on the tried and tested tools and resources that we use, that are from all the research that we use in the Resilience Accreditation Programme. So if you're interested in that, Katie's going to post some links actually to the community of practice and to some of the research. So if you're interested in exploring more, and it's the same for those of you in the community of practice, it's additional information as well. And what we thought would be a really nice way of closing out is just to ask all of you to think about, 2 or 3 words that you're taking away that describe how you're feeling or what you're thinking right here, right now. So Katie's going to pop up a poll on the screen, and then we can just see what sort of words come in. And Katie, it'd be great if we could see what some of those are as well.
I'm having a bit of an issue with the poll. It's not saving, but I wonder if we'd like to maybe pop them in chat.
Yeah, let's put them in chat. Yeah. Because I'm conscious of timing and what have you. But let's just pop into chat. It's an opportunity for you to just think about, in this moment, being present with yourself here and now, a few words that express how you're feeling right here, right now. And while you're doing that and while you're getting those thoughts together, you can see that Katie's put some resources in the chat. So download them, get hold of them. You know, you can follow up. She's also put in her email address. So if anyone wants the recording or want to follow up in any way, you can do that. I like some of these that are coming through. Energized, grateful, calm, energized. That's nice. That sort of sympathetic nervous system. Yay! Let's get those in-breaths, you know, vibrating for us. Brilliant. And I have to say, the community of practice meets regularly, and we have these sorts of sessions on a regular basis where you can just support yourself and tune in. So it's really lovely. Rebecca, is there anything from you before we close out?
No, just a huge thank you for joining us today. It's been really lovely to share what Anne and I were going to do anyway with a whole host of amazing coaches. So thank you for just being with us today. And I genuinely feel, yeah, much more resourced as I move into my first full week next week.
Yeah, I know. It's sort of around the corner. It's a bit close, isn't it?
Yeah. And get my supervision in place to help me keep doing it all.
Brilliant. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks so much.